Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special, secretive episode of Behind the Shield. We are in overtime because, well, it just so happens that we had a Behind the Shield episode just a few days ago, but there was so many topics, so many hot topics to get to that we weren't able to do that. So we thought of doing a special bonus episode. Myself, Marco Estrella, your host, accompanied by my trusty cybersecurity expert panel, Patrick Naum and Bill Strube. Hi, guys.
How's it going
Hello,
today?
everyone.
It's going good. Going good. Thanks for doing this. We just had too many topics, too many subjects, and they were interesting. And I think that our audience will be glad that we did this overtime episode. I think. So
Absolutely.
let's get right into it. So Patrick, we'll start with you this time. What is your extra bonus hot topic that you wanted to talk to us about?
Well, just before talking about the bonus hot topic, I just wanted to update something that I discussed at the last BTS concerning Johnson Controls.
Right.
I am currently scanning the web, and we are November 8th. Thank you. Sorry for that. And I have yet to see Johnson Controls report their Q4 earnings report, which is directly related because typically they always report November 1st or 2nd. And I have yet to see anything as I'm coming into this call. So I'm going to keep investigating to see if I have to update this further. But again, it shows that any hacking or ransomware attacks disrupts organizations in a big way and creating, in some cases, many cases, the inability to report on earnings for the shareholders. And it is a publicly traded company, as you all know. So I'm
Did
still
the
looking.
stock take a hit, Patrick? Do you know?
It took a hit over the last. What was that?
Yeah, I was wondering the same thing.
Yeah, it took a hit over the summer, right? It's if you look at their share price, it's already, reflective of, what happened.
Uh-huh.
They're still a solid company, though, mind you, there's a big setback, but the fundamentals of this company are solid. They took a hit, but the fact that they didn't report earnings now, they didn't take an additional hit because they kind of said it in advance that they would probably delay reporting, right?
Okay.
So that's what's going on. So I will keep an eye on that. In terms of the additional overtime topic I had, it's actually a topic that was published by Graham Cluley. If you recall, Graham was one of our hot topic hosts or panelists, sorry, a while back, and he has his Smashing Cybersecurity podcast, which I listen to once in a while, and they have this additional layer of humor in their podcast. They're really interesting, and they come up with all sorts of interesting stories, and not always related to cybersecurity, but very close to it. But I mean, it's always interesting. So he actually reported, and we'll put the link up for the team if you want to go deeper in this. But it's something that happened to him actually because he was using Booking.com to book a hotel. He was going to a conference, and essentially, and this is a trend that's been happening. He got a message from the app and an email as well saying that the hotel stay was going to be canceled. Right. So he's, today it's not, following the pandemic, hotel rooms people are traveling. It's much harder to get into a hotel room and book in advance. So he essentially, it calls upon people's worries about not being able, your plane ticket is booked, everything is in line, and then your hotel just tells you it's been canceled. So he literally went on the app, looked at the email. Now on the email side, he was able to detect that it was ransomware or phishing attack, if you will. Not a ransomware yet, but a phishing attack. And it caught his attention because if you look at it, at the app, and the app also was advising him that the hotel room was going to be canceled, and he had to click to extend the stay or update payment information, etc. So he obviously was very weary of what the application was telling him. But like he mentioned, and I'll go, talk to you about this later. Turns out that it's more serious than we think. So essentially, he pretty much, and I'm not going to go over the detail, but he opened a ticket with Booking.com, and he explained the whole situation, right? The email, the phishing attack, the message he got on the application. He validated the sources, et cetera, et cetera. And then he literally waited to see if Booking.com, because it was something happening in real time, if they would issue a statement regarding this issue. And he got a statement from them, and it stated what he went through. So clearly it was a call that he placed, and they listened to what he had to say, and maybe other people as well. So if you look at the summary in his article, he says the statement they put in describing the situation was exactly what he experienced. Then they warn people about possible security breaches and tell people that they promptly investigate these alerts. And then his response to that statement was, and this is, I'm quoting him, "Well, that's good. Although you didn't manage to protect me on this occasion, I protected myself." So he had to protect himself, right, with the email and whatnot, because it wasn't filtered, it wasn't captured, it wasn't detected by them. And then they tell you this is them saying, to make your personal information to make sure your personal information remains safe and secure, we'd like to inform you about what you can do on your end. What are the best practices? And then his response was, great, let's hear your suggestions. So obviously they talk about never sharing login details, having two-factor authentication, someone claiming to be Booking.com employee, check your logs, details, information, et cetera, et cetera. Do all the homework that we typically have to do. He didn't share any of that at all. Being in the security field, he literally said, in my case, it's not an issue. And then they mentioned something like, if you use your Booking.com password to access other similar services, be mindful of that. He says, I haven't used my Booking.com password anywhere else. I use a unique, strong password, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the challenge here is that he got the message from the application as well. But the application is sent, the message is sent by Booking.com. So when you net it all out, it's one thing receiving a message from the actual from an email, but the application, and he meant, and it goes on and on about what he was doing and whatnot. But then he concludes by saying, I have other questions that weren't answered. How are fraudsters using Booking.com to send out fraudulent messages to guests? Because the only people that have access to any communication through the application, not email phishing, but through the application, are either Booking.com employees or the hotel employees. Your email doesn't answer that. Is there a fraudster working at the hotel I'm going to be staying in a few weeks, who has access to the hotel's Booking.com account and can communicate with their clients? Has the hotel's Booking.com account been hacked? Or are there other issues at play here? So what he's saying is that with all the apps that we download, our hotel apps, our booking apps, our restaurant apps, when you're actually getting messages from those apps, you trust them by default because they're coming from the app. It's not like an email. And he literally said, he's so funny. That's his humor, right? He says, had I been in the grocery store buying eggplants, I would have been typically clicking on that application link and I would have been defrauded. So in his usual humor there, I didn't quote him exactly as he said, but it's something similar to that. So it's an example of how vulnerable we now are with those applications, regardless of your password management, your MFA management, etc. And it's very hard to protect from fraud. So in this specific case, we do not know, and Booking.com was not able to explain how that message also came from the application. And in that message, there was an unauthorized link, which was a phishing link as well. And he was able to go and analyze that as well. So that's what he reported, and it still remains unsolved.
I would have done the same thing. Just thinking about it, if I was, I use a different app. I won't say which one, now out of fear, but using the apps that I have for travel, if I would have received like your hotel's been canceled, I probably wouldn't have thought too much about it, because I like to think that I can trust my apps, but obviously not. So that's pretty interesting. Although I hearing that story, I do wonder, and I'm not saying for sure, but to me it sounds like the hotel would be the first place to start, not necessarily the service provider or the app provider.
Exactly. Maybe someone is moonlighting, doing that in hotels, sharing credentials, or has access to, or a hacker that just remotely controls or remote access the hotel systems and launches attacks from there.
Yep.
We don't know. So the message here is, if you do get an alert or a message from an app, make sure you look at the links that the app is asking you to click. Make sure to monitor the situation very closely. I mean, in this case, awareness is key, right? The awareness that, because before this, to your point, Bill, I was not aware that these apps would be compromised this way. Airlines is probably the same, right? Airline apps as well. Everything is on apps today. So it's an additional threat vector we need to be mindful of.
Thank you very much, Patrick. If you've just joined the podcast, we are doing a special overtime edition of Behind the Shield. Some hot topics that were left over from the last show. And we are just having some fun here today with some of these great stories. Let's move on to Bill Strube. Bill, you had something about kidnapping that's a little bit worrisome. Please fill us in.
Well, it's actually not left over from last week. This just came out a couple days ago, but it is related. So last week I talked about how people are using ChatGPT to create very realistic phishing tools, and I discussed how IBM X-Force went through and actually demonstrated some of the capabilities. This week, something caught my eye while looking at dark reading, and the article is called "Virtual Kidnapping: AI Tools Are Enabling IRL or in Real Life Extortion Scams." So the story is was reported on CNN. There was a 15-year-old that was training for a ski race, and I'm not going to go through the full story. If you want to find it, just go to dark reading. But basically, the gist is, by either utilizing social media data or other information that became available, people knew that she was gone. She knew that she was away from her parents, and somehow they got a sample of her voice. And the extortionists, I'm going to see if I can find it here, because I know that I probably would have hit the danger button myself. But basically, they sent or called the parents saying, help me, and there was a pretty substantial threat about what they would do with the girl and how they would dump her off in Mexico if they weren't going to pay the $1 million ransom. Now, spoiler alert, the girl was fine, but obviously these were folks using AI tools to go ahead and simulate her voice, as well as utilizing information that they were able to take from social media and put it together and simply try to use this as an extortion scam without ever putting the girl in harm's way. And the article basically talks about how, if they were smart, they could have done a SIM swap. So they could have actually checked her location or blocked her location information from the parents, which is how they basically figured out she was fine. They contacted her, while they were actually trying to deal with these folks that were trying to extort them. But it just goes to show you that, last week we talked about one way that AI is being used by folks to take advantage of folks as well. We're also seeing how kidnappers or virtual kidnappers could try to extort people in real life to do the same. So it was really more of an add-on than it was a new hot topic, but it definitely caught my attention. It made me think about some personal components as well. It's a way better effort than what people used to do, saying, Grandpa, I've been arrested, I'm in jail, please send me so many gift cards or something like that so I can get out, things that didn't make sense.
Yeah.
Enough people fell for that to begin with. But as a parent, I certainly, if I heard my daughter's voice in the background saying, I messed up, help me, that would tug at my heartstrings, and I'd probably pay a lot more attention than someone saying that, Grandpa, I've been arrested, I need your help.
Did the article say how they got the voice? It was social media?
I'm going to say it's social media. They just said open source. I didn't actually get a chance to go to the CNN portion of the article. So that was originally reported by CNN and then covered by Dark Reading. And then the last component of this is in 2 or 3 weeks, a couple researchers are going to present this at Black Hat Europe, which I believe is December 4th. So it'll be interesting to find out a little bit more and pay attention to some of the articles coming out in December from Black Hat Europe.
So I guess should we ask Jennifer, our producer, to modulate our voices just so we're safe doing the podcast? I mean, geez,
we mentioned safe words are important.
Yeah, we have to be careful. We know the for kids we teach kids and not just kids. It goes for everybody. To once you put something on the internet, it can be used against you. It's there forever. Well, the voice, here you go. Here we are with the voices now, and with the deep fakes, the faces. So if you're posting videos on TikTok and whatnot, somebody one day will take your face and might make you say something, and the video will be even more convincing than just the voice.
And Jen's posting right now that all of our voices are being captured and could be used against us down the road. So thanks.
There you go.
We appreciate that.
By the way, I did, while Bill was speaking, validate where we're at with Johnson. And as I suspected, they still have not published. It says November 9th as an estimated. And that's what they said for November 2nd and 3rd. So it's still an estimated release date. So they're scrambling right now.
Yeah, where there's smoke, there's probably fire over there. Okay, great. Thank you, Bill. That was good. I like that. My turn. I wanted to touch on a topic at the last show, which is kind of a gift that keeps on giving, and it's probably appropriate now that we're getting inching closer and closer to Christmas. And I'm talking about the Okta breach, or the latest Okta breach, anyway.
Be nice.
Yes, I know. And as a matter of fact, full disclosure, as we are Okta partners, we've been Okta partners for a long time. We know a lot of people over there, and and in the IAM space, the identity and access management space, it's been a major player for a long time. So, but we're not going to put our heads in the sand and say that it never happened and not talk about it. I thought it was an interesting topic in the sense that it's all, well, first of all, it's pretty well known, it's pretty well documented, it's out there, it's very public. It's a bit messy for them, right? If you'd ask me, would you stop using a product after a breach, after a single breach? Or I'll put the question to you guys: if a product that you're using or an application gets breached, do you stop using it right away?
Yeah. So thanks for putting us on the spot. I thought you'd answer that question yourself.
Well, I'll take you off the hook. Oh, okay, Bill, go ahead.
I'll answer that. I think the answer for me would be a single breach. I mean, I still go to Home Depot. I still go to Target.
Exactly.
I still go to a lot of different locations where there have been breaches. However, if it's persistent and something I see more and more often, I'm going to certainly start shying away from that particular organization, product, service, whatever it might be.
Yeah, over time, I have to agree because the good news is that we know they were breached and we know how it happened, right? And typically, if you're the customer that has not been affected, well, you know that they're going to put all their attention on that breach and all the attention on remediation. So it kind of helps, versus not knowing. So to your point, but exactly, if it's repeated, well, then you start questioning the efforts and the quality of what the products they're building and the quality of the company itself.
Yeah, so I really like your answer, Bill, saying, I still go to Home Depot, I still go to Target. I mean, my thinking of that was along those lines, but a lot of people would stop using Microsoft. Can you imagine? Because Microsoft is prevalent, it's everywhere. Everybody pretty much uses it, very, very widespread. If we would stop using it after a single breach, I mean, what would happen to Microsoft? But
and how about those hospitals?
Yep.
When you stop going to the hospital,
stop going to the hospital. Exactly.
Your identity being stolen. I mean, hey, it's a difficult.
So this particular story reminded me of course, LastPass, and I was a customer of LastPass. And as a matter of fact, just to support what we're saying here, is that I stuck with them for the first major breach a couple years ago, and changed my passwords. Of course, I'm a bit worried. That's where I store my passwords. But then when the second one happened, immediately when there was the news, that was it. That the second time. What's the saying? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I believe.
Yeah, that's it.
Exactly.
So, LastPass, unfortunately, thank you for the years of service, but you're not cutting it right now. So I switched to 1Password, which is connected a little bit to this story here, because I switched to 1Password, and the article that I had was that 1Password was affected by the Okta breach. Now, I read the article very, 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 very carefully because, I jumped from LastPass, come to 1Password, not even a year later. I'm going to jump again. Will I jump ship again? Are password managers even safe? That's a topic for another day. It's not really the reason of my hot topic today, but the crux of it all is that they were impacted, but they didn't lose any information. No vaults, no hashes, no passwords were lost, but they were impacted. But what hurts Okta in my eyes is the fact that they 1Password and Beyond Trust saw some suspicious activity and advised Okta on September 29th, and Okta came forward with the breach on October 20th, which is that's 21 days. That's 3 weeks later. So I find that that's a bit long. I know that you got to put your ducks in a row and you got to implement your incident response plan and your business continuity plan and get your insurance involved and all that stuff, but meanwhile, the customer in this 3 weeks, we're not being made aware of this, so we're not changing our passwords, we're not protecting ourselves, we're not making any moves to protect ourselves. Meanwhile, the cyber criminals might be in the network, they might have our credentials, and 3 weeks. I mean, a lot can be done in those 3 weeks with my credentials, right? So that's the part that leaves a bad taste in my mouth. I have a little note here. Reputational damage. So LastPass took a hit. Okta is taking a hit with the second one. I don't think there's enough being said about reputational damage. Oftentimes, you want to protect the bottom line, the dollars, but what happens? And now we're talking about Johnson Controls. Patrick, you were just mentioning Johnson Controls and delaying their quarterly results more than 7 days. So what's going to happen to their reputation? Is the stock going to take a hit? So, it's something that sometimes cybersecurity, the CISOs and cybersecurity managers and directors, they fail to kind of see that aspect sometimes, I find.
Yes, but I'll have to, if I may, Marco,
please,
jump
please.
in. I think you all, in terms of the stock price conversation, you also have to consider what type of business the client is in. If I'm Okta on my bread and butter is cybersecurity, I'm gonna get beaten up if I'm breached, right? If you're Johnson Controls, what's your core business? Industrial controls, it's physical assets, it's intellectual property, multinational company. Where it may hurt them is in specific, as we discussed last time, government contracts, right? Because they're dealing with the DHS, and will that impact their future ability to answer RFPs potentially? But the fundamentals of the companies are still solid, right? So it has a mitigating effect when you look at the actual share price, and a company like that will probably recover, but we'll have to spend a lot of money to get out of it, right? And that may upset shareholders short term, but not long term, I think.
Yeah, I also think that the other component of that, though, Patrick, would be what was stolen, and that we don't know. And how is that data going to be used? Was it something new that they were working on that that was going to be highly valuable, a new piece of IP that could not be reproduced somewhere else in the world, or was it, interesting but not really meaningful data when it comes to a stock perspective? So
you mentioned a really good point, because if I look at BRP out here, which do build recreational vehicles, they had a very serious attack, and data was exfiltrated, and it was literally their plans, R&D plans for all their ATVs and motorcycles and whatnot, and boats for the next 10 years. It was a Chinese hack. And you know what? I have seen, and I'm seeing, I think it's called CFM. They're a Chinese manufacturer ATVs. And you could bet that some of that technology will end up being in those vehicles over the next few years. So you're right. At long term, you could have erosion in the valuation of the company for sure.
Yeah, I've seen CF Moto, and I've compared it to other ATVs and UTVs on the market. Without naming names, I'll just say that they've done a very good job of at possibly just reverse engineering what they physically see into those products, and hopefully that's the extent of it.
I want to end with I went on October 10th, the Statista.com. So the website names tells you that it's all about statistics. So on October 10th, market shares for password managers, gentlemen. Number one, are you with 23.3%? Any guesses on password managers? Number one with 23.3%.
I'm gonna go with 1Password. For password managers, like personal? Or...
Yeah, password managers, yeah.
Okay.
LastPass is still number one, followed by 1Password with 4.5%. So we're talking about an 18-point difference, the market leader and the following company after those two breaches. So after all, maybe what the moral of my hot topic is, there might still be some hope for Okta yet, I guess.
I mean, when you look at the average person that uses those applications, the consumer, because it's business to consumer for the most part, of course, there are exceptions. To what extent does everyone know about the breach and what happened? I could tell you my wife didn't, because she had LastPass. She used it.
She wasn't aware?
No, I told her, I said, are you still using LastPass when it happened? Or a bit after that, and she says, yeah. Why? What's up?
That's a good point. I guess maybe because we were in cybersecurity every day, because we're reading cybersecurity websites and we're in touch, we know about it, but the average Joe consumer doesn't know about it.
And there's knowing about it, like all these CISOs, executives, and boards out there. There's knowing about it, and then there's doing something about it. If everyone was acting on everything they know, like all of the breaches that we see every day, more and more clients would be spending money and being more secure, and it's not the case.
Our producer Jennifer is in my ear right now saying she uses Bitwarden, but she wants to know what's our opinion on which one to use. Any
I don't know enough
gentlemen?
about. I can't say. I don't know.
I do know for having switched not too long ago that Bitwarden, the one that you've chosen, is highly regarded, and I remember that on that Statista website, I believe it has like 1% of market share. So you see, it's climbing steadily, but it hasn't been hacked yet. But maybe it's because it hasn't been hacked yet because not enough people use it. Also, who knows, right? It's always the ones that have the largest market share that are the largest, juiciest target. So maybe that's why LastPass got whacked twice, right?
There you go. I also like Jen's last note, which is or a sticky note. So it really depends upon which password you're talking about.
Or you could always use Excel and put a one password, encrypted password on your Excel spreadsheet with all the passwords you own, right? That could, why not?
Yeah, post it under the keyboard. Oh no, please don't.
People listening to the podcast, that was not a recommendation.
Correct. Disclaimer,
please.
Yes.
Disregard.
Oh, Patrick, Bill, thank you very much. This, for those of you who just joined, well, we're at the tail end of our overtime Behind the Shield. So, a special episode. We just went through 3 hot topics that didn't make it at our last show. We wanted to share them with you. So we had some AI kidnapping. We had Johnson Controls still not releasing their quarterly results. They're 7 days late. And we had the Okta breach. So this special episode will be available wherever you find your podcasts sometime next week. So look out for that. A quick reminder, there will be no Behind the Shield in December due to the holidays. So we're going to see you all back here, hopefully fully rested, back in January 2024. So in my name, Patrick Naum, Bill Strube, thank you very much for joining. And remember, when you're behind the shield, you're ahead of the game. Take care, guys.
Everyone.
Take care.
Bye-bye.